Hello and welcome to The Dream. Today with me is Andrew Tanzil. How are you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing fine, Lucian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. So first, I want to get background about you for anyone who doesn't know who you are or what you've done.
Okay, so I've been in the esports industry for quite a while. Most notably, I guess like known to be working with the Score Esports in their video team, ranging from work with their graphics, all the way to working on interviews, information about the league, and basically insight for the team to be able to get information here and there for their content, video content mostly.
Right. So how did you get into a job like that? Was it just something that you planned, or did you just kind of get the offer and decide to take it?
Actually, they hired me because of my expertise in the industry. I've been working in the amateur scene for quite some time, and me coming from Toronto, there's not a lot of people who know a lot about esports. So, of course, it was pretty much a very easy hire for them to figure out, like, hey, you know what? We need some expertise. Let's get this guy. So, yeah, I've been doing esports since, oh, I guess college.
Right. Okay. So how did you network yourself to get that job? Was it just kind of like you were already there and they knew about you, or who did you reach out to try and get that?
Oh man, it was actually you just basically need to make noise and try to get noticed out there in the industry. It's like um, I originally tried out for a team named GAM which was managed and owned by a man named Christian Valman, and unfortunately that team never came to fruition as they were trying to look for a team and sponsor. But however, another organization reached out to me. They were originally trying to get a deal with Team GAMDS, and they had a pretty good roster. And during this time, it was Final Five, which was managed by Miss Peach.
Gotcha. All right. So how did you network yourself? Because you mentioned you just got to make noise. How did you go about making noise?
Mostly, what I wanted to do is like I was enthusiastic. I really wanted to work in the industry. I had a lot of work that I do in the community, uh, in the realms of collegiate sports. Work together with my school's esports program, as well as working with the community here. They have a pretty large esports community called the Toronto League Commune.
Right.
And from there, I did a lot of administration work, organized tournaments, create a lot of graphics, worked with sponsors, and that kind of gave me like kind of a experience that I could be picked up by another team and organization. I would say most people who get into, I guess, you would call support for esports, which would basically be like management, graphic designer, coaching, and assistant
Right.
coach or an analyst. They all mostly work from volunteers because you have like really nothing to go by unless you have some merit.
Right. Yeah. Now, I want to ask you, in your line of work and what you've done in esports, what do you think the biggest mistake you've seen by other people is?
Most people, I would say their biggest mistake is not knowing when they're not good enough. Mostly, I see a lot of young professionals who have hopes of trying to become a pro player or trying to uh, basically manage a team, but they don't really know when to stop or when they figure out like maybe it's time for me to call it quits. Um, I would say that's mostly a lot of the downfalls, and usually especially right now during the amateur scene. There's a lot of owners who would basically take that kind of vulnerability these players would take and basically offer them like obscenely ridiculous contracts with like empty promises, and this often results in unpaid players as well as very low salaries if they do get paid. And let's say that a team like this makes it into the LCS, most likely they're going to all get dropped, and there's going to be a whole new roster.
Right. And what are your thoughts on contracts in amateur scene? Because I know a lot of people aim to look to try and make money while they're in the amateur scene. What are your thoughts on holding people down for, or as you would say, with a contract in amateur?
When I was in the amateur scene, the things I've seen is like the Wild West. Contracts were basically just a form of paper that had almost no legal binding for anybody. Um, Most of the time, players were often misrepresented by whatever legal advice they could get, and they just basically have to take the word of the owner saying you will get paid. And most cases, if they did get paid, they got paid like $100 a month or something
Right.
for basically a very new player. So that's essentially nothing.
Right. Yeah. And do you have any suggestions for any aspiring pros or people who are looking to make it in the scene?
I would say if you want to try to go pro and especially making it to the scene, I'm not really sure for players what they could do. They just need to get noticed. But if you're a content creator, if you're somebody who wants to be an analyst or a coach, I would say you just start doing your work by yourself. You publish your work onto any kind of site. Like Reddit is a great source to pop your information, and if you start making your own content right away, eventually someone will notice that, and you will get picked up eventually.
Right.
If you work hard enough.
Right. And that's what it all comes down to, the hard work that you got to put in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Andrew. It was great getting to talk to you and hear about your side of the esports scene.
It's great to be on the show, Lucian.
All right. Well, thanks. That will be all for The Dream this week, and we hope to see you all next week on The Dream.